Welcome to Beating Cancer Daily. Beating stage 4 cancer for 30 years still takes my breath away every time I say it. I'm Saranne, founder of the Comedy Cures Foundation, and I hope you'll join me for just a few minutes daily for the next 365 days so we may laugh, learn, maybe cry a little as we live our best days beating cancer daily together. Today I was driving and I saw a woman cross the street in broad daylight in a ladybug outfit. She had like a onesie on, but it was red with black polka dots, and she had her hood up and there were antennae coming out of her head. And she literally was just walking to do an errand looking like a ladybug. And it made me laugh. I was so happy that she felt so comfortable being a ladybug walking down the street. It's not Mardi Gras. It's not Halloween. She just felt like getting her ladybug on. She had all her little dots. And it made me think how much I love people watching. I just love it. And I remember going through so much cancer treatment, and it got me through. It was almost like going to a Broadway show or running out to a movie, but it was less of a commitment and it really entertained me. So not only just sitting in a cafe or in a park, but in the chemo room, in the waiting room, waiting to get a scan or a blood test. Oh my gosh, how much do we have to wait when we're going through some kind of treatment, especially cancer? Because first you have to get diagnosed. That took weeks and weeks for me. I think it was 6 weeks before I was even scheduled for my first surgery. And that's a lot of time and a lot of scanning, waiting for doctors and getting second opinions. So I made it my hobby to people watch just to pass the time. And there's so many fun things that you can do while you're people watching. So if you're a little bit bored or frustrated by how much you have to hang out, or you're too nauseated or antisocial to go hang out with people while you're going through treatment, there's no judgment. It takes a lot of energy to go through treatment. And sometimes you just want to hang solo. I would suggest just taking a walk if you feel well enough and parking yourself out of direct sunlight. I couldn't have direct sunlight when I was going through all this treatment. And just on a daily or weekly basis, hang out and do some people watching. Now there's so many things that you can use as indicators to try to figure out the people who are in your sight line. Now, if you're visually impaired, you can eavesdrop. It's so fun to hear snippets of conversations and then fill in the whole life of the people that you've just heard this little piece of. Or I bet some of you are going, Sarah, just read a book. Just get an audiobook, Sarah, and you don't have to do this. I just love people. So back to this watching of people, wherever you want to do it. But like I said, if you just don't feel like talking because you just don't want to have conversation or repeat anything about your cancer treatment or what's going on with your cancer story, go by yourself or go with a friend and just hang out and watch people. Now you can learn so much. You can try to figure out, is that person an extrovert or an introvert? Is that person nice? A lot of body language can really clue you in to the kind of person that you're observing. Now, you're not stalking them. I actually looked it up. I looked up to see if people watching is a form of stalking, and it's not because you're just letting people come in and out of your view. You are not following them home. So you're good. You're safe. You can really judge someone's self-esteem by how they're holding their body, if they're making eye contact with people. Their clothes, their clothes can be a great clue into who they are, how their hair is kept. Someone once said to me that this man that I was dating was so perfectly manicured that they would never trust him, that he was hiding something. And you know what? They were right. It was a very wise Russian woman. She picked right up on the fact that this guy was actually hiding something. So I consider people watching a hobby, a sport, and it can really pass the time. And if you're feeling a little bit social, you can actually observe all the people around you in that waiting room and decide who you think would be the most fun person to have a conversation with. Don't underestimate the power of a good people watch. I've mentioned before that my daughter is a TV writer, and I know that she observes all different kinds of behavior because it's really fun to see little inspirations from people around you and create whole characters that can be used in your book or your movie. But comedians, wow, they are just masters of observation. And it's really fun because they'll hear snippets of conversation that delight them or make them curious. And then they can build an entire set around someone that they observed that they maybe never met. Did you ever just sit with someone in a restaurant and there's a couple sitting next to you and you're listening to parts of their conversation, and then just for fun, you guys build a whole story about them when they leave? What was their life like before they got in the restaurant, and what's their life like after they leave? I think I've mentioned this before, that just for fun, if we see our dog or we're in a dog park, we actually have conversations that the pets are having in their own head. I have made some really great friends just by people watching and deciding that the feeling that I was getting from them was so cool, or they seemed so interesting that I just couldn't let the opportunity pass. So I started a conversation, and those conversations developed into longer conversations, and they've actually become my friends. Or I thought the people were so interesting that I introduced them to friends of friends or even to my family, and they became friends. I can think of a comedian, Monty Franklin. First, I saw him on stage. He was hilarious. And then I overheard him having trouble getting a hotel room. And I just felt so badly for the guy who was from Australia. And he was just, beside himself that he couldn't get into a hotel in New York City. So through friends of friends, we actually invited him home with us. And he actually became my daughter's roommate at one point with his fiance. And that just came from basically eavesdropping and people watching. And then Monty went on to perform shows for the Comedy Cures Foundation, which is the charity that I started. But that just came from a good old people watching eavesdrop. So you never know how these things can develop. I would not recommend just taking a comedian home with you. It wasn't like that. We were actually doing a good deed, and we knew him from the circuit, and he knew us because of our charity and it all worked out just fine. But I would not recommend taking home a stranger. It did work out fine for us. Anyway, I hope you have a fun day, people watching, if you're going to go out and try it. And I'll see you tomorrow. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then I'd love to ask for you to go to comedycures.org and check out our membership circle levels. You will find even more resources and more programming, like our live virtual Q&A sessions with me, our live Comedy Cures events with our very talented comedians, live health builder workshops with Jackie Bryan, hosted by me, a robust monthly newsletter, plus much more. It's really an exciting community. So please consider becoming a member, giving it as a gift, telling your friends, telling your hospital support group all about this community. I can't think of a more empowering way to go through a cancer journey or your survivorship or your caregiving experience than with us at Beating Cancer Daily. It's truly an honor to serve you. Thanks so much. See you tomorrow. Guess what time it is? It's time for me to read the disclaimer. Beating Cancer Daily and the membership circle are not in lieu of medical advice or treatment. They are for entertainment purposes only. Please consult your healthcare team to review your best strategy. Thanks for listening.